morning to our friends in Mauritius. Good morning to our friends in Vienna. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, from Vienna. We're not starting with the minister?
He is the... So we'll continue until he... Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us, for those home and abroad, to our third quarter virtual productivity forum. And today it's been done a little differently, and we have a nugget-filled session, jam-packed with information, takeaways, call to actions, new way of doing things just for you. So please stay tuned with us. And today our topic will be surrounding another topic of growth and productivity in Jamaica, but this time we'll be focusing on the industrial sector. And with us, right here with me in Jamaica, we have Mr. Andrew Wildish, who will be representing the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association. Next to him, we have Lisa Suarez, who wears so many different hats, but today she'll be speaking on the matter of competitiveness and innovation. And next to her is Dr. Amonde, who is from the Heart Trust NTA here in Jamaica, and she'll be speaking about human capital and how it affects productivity. And also, as another treat that we have for you today, is that we have our friends from UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and we have Dr. Anders Isaacson, who will be speaking to us today. And also we have Mauritius, our friends from Mauritius. And if you are in the area of productivity, you will know that we go to Mauritius for a lot of case studies. And today we have none other than the permanent secretary there from the Ministry of Industry and Development and her team. And she has also brought along persons from the National Competitiveness Council there in Mauritius as well to share with us today. So please do stay tuned as we proceed. And we should at this moment have our minister, but what we will do is give you a brief overview of where we are as it relates to productivity in Jamaica and the sector to kick off our discussions. And to do so is our senior research analyst at the Jamaica Productivity Center, Mr. Wendell Ivy, and he will be sharing with you briefly just a global overview of where we are today. So I'm going to hand over now to Mr. Ivy. Good morning, Wendell. Are you with us?
Maybe you can.
Wendell, you can proceed. We await your presentation. We are hearing you clearly. Wendell, you can go ahead. We're hearing you.
Okay, hold on.
Just give him a moment while he sets up. There we go.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Wendell Ivy, and I'm a senior research analyst at the Jamaica Productivity Center, attached to the Research and Measurement Unit. Today, I'll be sharing a few trends in productivity. So productivity growth has slowed down markedly since the global financial crisis and has stayed below that level. But productivity growth is important because it is one of the main sources of poverty reduction. Some of the causes for the slowdown in productivity growth include slowdown in population, education, trade, economic complexity, and lower investments of capital. So the COVID-19 pandemic has also will compound the effects of some of these drivers of the slowdown in productivity. And the implications include weaker investment and trade, erosion of human capital and shifts in the labor market, slowdown in momentum in labor reallocation. But the COVID-19 pandemic will not only only bring negative things. There are also opportunities for productivity to increase through proper organizational change and the absorption of technology. So here we look at a few trends in the sectors in the performance and productivity in the Jamaican economy. So here we have the goods producing sector. So this is all the sectors that produce a tangible commodity, and it is only the essential services from 2000 that has basically shown some growth: electricity, gas, and water, and transport. The rest of the sector has basically seen negative growth in productivity over the entire period. So this is the good producing sector, and we see here that only agriculture and forestry has basically grown. So most of the sectors in the Jamaican economy have seen negative productivity growth since 2000 to 2018. So since most of the sectors, and we are having a focus on manufacturing, we decided to look at how Jamaica performs in terms of manufacturing value added from 1993 to 2018. And we also included Mauritius. So this is a set of Caribbean countries included Mauritius. And we can see that one of the better performers has been the Dominican Republic. Mauritius has been performing better relative to Jamaica, as Jamaica has seen negative productivity value added growth over the period. So some of the drivers of productivity in firms, and we know that manufacturing has a lot of firms in them. So some of the drivers include the input quality, the management, so management styles that facilitates productivity growth, and the absorption of technological process. Externally, we have regulations. It needs regulation that facilitates productivity growth, and also the spillovers from input markets. So these are a list of things that could be done to unleash productivity growth in Jamaica. Chief among them is basically transferring from low value added production or low value added goods to high value added production of goods and services. So now we have identified an area in the economy that we believe at the Jamaica Productivity Center that can help to improve productivity in the country. And we have identified agro-processing. So the agricultural sector basically employs a fifth of the labor in Jamaica, but the productivity is so low that any marginal increase of output per worker can have the possibility of increasing productivity in that sector and overall influencing the overall Jamaican economy in reversing the trends of low productivity growth that we have been seeing over the last couple of years. So agro-processing as a solution, it will bring increased production through automation, and it will provide more sustainable options that reduce food wastage and improves portability of products. And also it brings with it the resilience to climate change. So this was basically just a short run through of the performance of the Jamaican economy and a sector that we think that could actually drive the productivity growth if emphasis is placed on it. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendell. Very brief and to the point. So he has just whet our appetite with some of the figures there. We have seen some perspectives as it relates to our current performance. And what we want to do at this time is to speak to our manufacturers to get their perspectives on what has been shown here in terms of productivity and growth in the sector. Andrew?
Thank you. Thank you, Wendell. Great presentation. The JMEA represents a diverse group of companies, both large conglomerates, a lot of SMEs, exporters. And the sector has also felt the pinch. I mean, a lot of people are struggling with certain key drivers that affect our competitive nature or our competitiveness in the market. The success stories, some amazing success stories in food production, furniture production, regional sales, as well as local supply. But there are also a lot of challenges that the JMEA members face on a daily basis. In effectively manufacturing and distributing products to both regionally and in Jamaica.
Right.
And the competitive nature, competitive advantage of being in Jamaica, where there's quite a lot of crime and violence that impacts trade. SMEs have a hard time finding finance working capital and projects. Barriers to trade internationally, cost of trade internationally. And we're actually very excited about the focus in manufacturing, both by the Ministry of Industry and Commerce and the Ministry of Labor, because we feel that manufacturing is a pillar, or one of the pillars, of the turnaround for Jamaica. When we have a competitive advantage in Jamaica, we'll start seeing large conglomerates bringing manufacturing opportunities back to Jamaica. Jamaica right now is primarily manufacturing products and brands known to Jamaican, either owned by Jamaicans or owned internationally. But in the consolidation of manufacturing that we saw when we saw the manufacturing moving to Dominican Republic,
Right.
a lot of our conglomerates that are consolidating manufacturing are not consolidating manufacturing in Jamaica. And it's a real sign that we need to do something as a country. The public sector, the private sector must work together to make Jamaica an attractive destination
Yes.
for global business to come.
And we have to get into the hows of moving from the what to the how might we be able to attract and retain businesses in Jamaica, and quite also possibly, as mentioned, grow those who are small, the SMEs, that they too can become conglomerates.
Well, all the conglomerates started out as SMEs
Yes, yes.
30, 40, 50 years ago. And the SMEs are the future of Jamaican manufacturing. And we do have to foster. We do have to foster the SMEs in terms of working capital financing opportunities, labor, access to trade, access to international markets, deal with the crime problem, work on energy, work on water, work on the cost of producing in Jamaica, make production a focus point, similar to the focus point of tourism and the tourism ministry. Jamaica needs to focus on manufacturing with a very clear set of goals where it can get to.
Thank you for that, Andrew. And how would you say the sector is coping with what's happening now? And are there any plans, that will help the sector that are in place right now?
COVID, I think when COVID first came, there was a sense of panic in the market. There was a sense of panic in manufacturing. Nobody knew what it would look like. We were all saying the world is going to stop spinning. But what we've realized is that in all challenge there's opportunity.
Right.
There are opportunities, and what we've seen is with the change of people's lives, there's been a slight change in the consumption of products. And a lot of our manufacturers in Jamaica have done phenomenally well. During the COVID pandemic, with people being at home and purchasing consumer goods, other manufacturers have really struggled. I mean, a lot of the SMEs have struggled and continue to struggle due to tourism and the reduction of tourism and their manufacturing for the tourism sector.
Right.
Single-serve beverage products have suffered terribly, but large-sized beverage products have taken it up. So what we've seen in the manufacturing sector is that the conglomerates and specific manufacturers that are doing consumer goods have done very well during COVID. But another group have really, really struggled, and I think we do need to make sure that we support and foster growth in that group.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And at this time, we'll now turn over to Lisa, who will give her perspectives. Lisa is the chairperson for a particular group that looks at productivity on the National Competitiveness Council, and we have the opportunity of working together on that team. And we have come up with some interesting work, Lisa. You mind sharing some of those perspectives?
Thanks, Tamar. And this is such a good program that is being run today. Welcome to our friends at UNIDO and Mauritius. So my background is, my company is Great People Solutions. I'm a consultant and I'm a leadership coach. So I really look on changing mindsets as well as getting things done. And just as a way of background, starting my business in 2013 was one that I was starting online anyway, a virtual office, work from home was a norm with consultants, etc. What I've found, having had experience being on the board with JAMPRO and public health, working in stakeholder groups, is that the strategy of JAMPRO was to focus on productivity. And in partnership with the ministry and the National Competitiveness Council, we wanted to make sure that we knew the drivers behind GDP. And the committee included Tamar, included persons from Staten, young persons and economists from UWI, PIOJ, DBJ. We got a group together to get minds to say, well, let's get granular. What are we going to measure? Because what gets measured gets done. And essentially, we benchmark out of the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index, which has 141 countries, and we ranked 80 or 81. We determined that we wanted to benchmark around 28 countries that were similar to Jamaica that had great success. And of course, our ranking was not good. I mean, I'll just tell you, embarrassingly low. Out of 141 countries, we were like 140 as ranking for homicide rate and major crimes. Investment in R&D is extremely low as well. So we knew there were things we had to have a breakthrough. So the team came together, and out of these, all the hundreds of indices, looking also on shipping and logistics, which were not good. Export costs from Jamaica are way too high, and I'm going to just support Andrew and the JMA on this thing. We cannot afford to have such high export and shipping costs from Jamaica. It is making us uncompetitive. And we also looked on like labor productivity indices, capital productivity, and total factor productivity. So when you had specialists like Tamar and our colleagues at PIOJ and UWI, we were able to really pull together all the relevant information. We came up with 3 tiers of productivity indices, which we also attach owners to it. So the ministries, public sector, and private sector groups, because in COVID, by the way, there's only one team. It's public and private sector. So the standards of productivity we're going to attach to the private sector have to apply to the public sector as well.
Absolutely.
So therefore, we came up with about 30 top-ranking KPIs, and the whole intention is to take these KPIs, engage the government, engage manufacturing and other groups to own these KPIs to be able to have a breakthrough in the next, at least in the next 6 months to a year. What gets measured gets done, and I think I'm really proud of the work that was done, and JAMPRO is going to take it forward. I'll just only add, in addition to the goods-producing sectors, our tourism sector is really critical. A lot of linkages of livelihoods go to tourism. So a school will close down when we have COVID because tourism workers can't send their children to school. Incomes get lost, you lose consumers. If you don't have consumers, you can't have business. And our foreign direct investment and local direct investment have to remain strong for Jamaica to grow. So really and truly, to answer your question, is that it's a number of things. The world that we're living in is what you call a VUCA plus world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous, but it also has turbidity. And, you know, at the end of the day, it creates a lot of anxiety. So we have to kind of get smart, pull it together, and make sure that we deliver on all of these KPIs for productivity.
Thank you, Lisa. And you touched on a very important point, the matter of measurement. And that is something that we have to develop right across, whether public or private, one team, in that we can't be afraid of the numbers because we can't improve if we're not measuring. And that's one of the focus of the Jamaica Productivity Center in the short to medium term, is to improve and to disseminate on a regular basis metrics related to productivity. So we know where we are, we know where the gaps are and what we need to do. So there are so many factors at play, but we need to know the drivers, and we have identified some, and we need to just focus on them and hammer at it, be bullish about it, using Lisa's words, and to ensure that we have that growth that we know we can achieve here in Jamaica. And so at this point, we're going to move on straight into another presentation. Straight into another presentation. This time it will be from our guest speaker at the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Anders Isaacson. Now, Anders is a senior policy and research analyst, and he has been working at UNIDO for the past 20 years. He's no stranger to the Jamaica Productivity Center. In fact, he came here about 10 years ago, Anders.
That was the first time, yeah?
Yes, 10 years ago, and shared with us We worked on some projects to get some projects going together in innovation. Still working to get that out. But I think we owe Anders some strong
Streamed live.
coffee. Because what time is it now by you?
No, it's not so bad. It's just like 5 o'clock too. So it's all right. It's just, I mean, it's much worse in Mauritius.
Okay. Well, I know you won't refuse the coffee, but Anders has done some interesting analysis on Jamaica, comparing it to Mauritius. So please stay tuned to this presentation. Anders, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tamar. And thank you very much for inviting me to this exciting meeting. It's really great to be back in Jamaica, although it's a bit harder now to enjoy the curry goat, the climate and so on. But at least you people are there, and that's a big treat. Hello to Mauritius as well. As you can see from my background, I am, well, in Austria we are home-based these days with COVID. So I don't have those nice posters with productivity and innovation that you have in Mauritius. So I'm glad to see that you have that. So basically what I'm going to do here is try to set the scene a little. Now, Wendell gave an excellent presentation, and there might be a few overlaps, not too many, I hope, because I'm focusing more on direct comparison between Mauritius and Jamaica. But there are some things that there will be some resemblances. And unfortunately, I don't think my story will be any happier from a Jamaican point of view. So let me try to share the screen to begin with. So that's the title, yeah? So I guess you can see the screen?
Yes,
we can see the screen.
Great. Okay, so a brief outline. I will just have a few words on as an introduction. It's basically a presentation cluttered with graphs and tables and stuff like that, and not so many words. But I would like to start from a global picture and actually show that productivity and welfare go hand in hand. I think by now we all know that, but still, I will show you one illustration of that. Then I will show you the productivity performance of Jamaica and Mauritius. It will be more of a macro picture, but I also do some direct comparisons of labor productivity between sectors of the two countries. Then we're going to look at structural change and industrial development in Jamaica and Mauritius. And I think part of the explanation of what we will see is to be found there. And then, yeah, I will just conclude and hand over, and maybe to Mauritius to learn what they have done so well and what Jamaica can learn from that. Okay, so I cannot see my screen because I see myself covering the text here. Anyways, so what I'm trying to say here is that productivity and welfare go hand in hand, but whether the spoils of productivity will actually reach people, I mean, there's no automatic trickle down. This is something you can influence by policy. So there are cases, of course, where productivity goes to a few people. There are cases where productivity goes to the people. Thinking in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, there is obviously the risk that that productivity spoils will go to fewer and fewer people, especially since we know that income shares are on the decline. So the part of GDP that goes as labor compensation is actually shrinking around the world. So yeah, this is basically what I've said. And I would like to emphasize then the role of industry, and in particular that of manufacturing. So I would like to start with the quite simple solid growth model, where we have growth coming from two parts. One is accumulation of capital, such as machine and equipment, more labor, more human capital, and so on. And the other factor being technology, which Solo, of course, called total factor productivity. But he was talking about technological progress. So it's a very, very simple model where technology is exogenous. The whole point of the model was, of course, to be able to see what the source of growth are. And we know that because capital deepening runs into diminishing returns to scale. So in the long run, it's all about technology. And I'm going to demonstrate that this is actually the case. So it's technological progress that will lead to enhanced welfare and poverty reduction in Jamaica and in all developing countries. So let me show you one graph here. So we will come back to this one, and I just wanted to focus on this part, the encircled part, which shows that TFP or technology is negatively associated with poverty. So countries that have reached a high level of technology are also less poor. I'm not claiming any causal inferences here, but I'm pretty sure you know what I'm thinking. And then we're going to look at the productivity performance of both countries. We're going to look through two lenses. One is the world technology frontier, and the other one is simple labor productivity and total factor productivity over time. Okay, so there are two lines here. The blue line represents the highest possible performance, productivity performance in 1960. So all the blue dots are blue countries, 1960 countries. And the distance from a dot like this up to the frontier represents the gap between what the country achieved and what it could have achieved. Okay, so the best countries, they are at the frontier. They are the frontier. So you cannot perform up here in 1960. Of course, in 2018 technology, we are getting much more out of the same amount of inputs. Okay, so the framework I'm using here is GDP, which is Y, and over labor. And the S stands for human capital. So I've adjusted all the inputs here for human capital. So that's not missing. There is, of course, a good thing happening here that you see there's a lot of technological progress going on in the world, but it's mainly happening amongst the richer countries. The distressing part is down here, close to the origin, where you find most developing countries. And you can see that there has been some technological regress, actually, for these countries. So what they could achieve in 1960 is no longer achievable in 2018, or at least the countries are not managing this. So we're going to look at Mauritius and Jamaica, and you will unfortunately find them down here. And here we can see the first set of results. You can see that Mauritius started down here in 1960 and moved up like this in 2018. So they increased both the resources, they increased the performance. And this is the way you would like to move, in this direction, northeast. Jamaica, unfortunately, started out in a better position, but unfortunately has moved southwest. We don't like that. So your performance has actually gone down. We can also compare two countries in terms of labor productivity. This is now relative to the performance of the United States. So if the line is going up, like in the case of Mauritius, you're actually catching up with the United States. So your labor productivity is growing faster than that of the United States. And of course, if it's going down, you're losing. So Jamaica actually went from 0.3 down to 0.15 over this, what is it, 6 years. We can see that some of this can actually be explained by the amount of capital labor going into production. But you can also see that the lines are very, very close to that of technology. So again, you see the same trend. In terms of technology, Jamaica is losing ground to the United States. Mauritius is catching up. And here's a snapshot picture of 2018 in terms of labor productivity and in terms of total factory productivity. And here we have 145 countries. Yeah, I mean, you can read for yourself. So Mauritius is 24% of what the United States is accomplishing at place 60 something. In Jamaica is close, well, it's 97, you know? And you can see a few neighboring countries in the Caribbean as well. Some doing better, some doing worse. So what I would like to talk about now is the role of industry in this, and I think it has a lot to do with the difference or the divergence we are seeing between the two countries. And I think the good benchmark model here is that of your son, Sir Arthur Lewis, of the University of West Indies. So what we are interested in terms of structural change is, of course, a move from low to medium to high-tech sectors or tasks, because actually production is quite fragmented these days. So it's not necessarily we're looking at the production of cars anymore, but we're looking at the production of windshields, of tires, of wheels, of chassis, and so on. So maybe that's a better description. But what we are interested in is moving into production that's more technologically sophisticated, because that's where you find most value added. So, I mean, what Lewis basically started from was an agriculture economy. Well, basically, you work with your hands, more or less. And he then explained why resources would move to manufacturing. And the reason, of course, higher salaries in manufacturing. And the reason for that is higher relative productivity compared to agriculture, which again goes back to the role of technology and TFP. And I would claim that this pretty much explains the Mauritius Jamaica story. We can come back again to this, the first illustration I had, where you can see that the share, countries that have higher share of MVA, manufacturing value added, in GDP, also have lower poverty. If you have more value added, manufacturing value added per capita, you also tend to have a less income inequality, and you also tend to be less poor. So I think this is a pretty convincing argument for why you would like to focus on manufacturing. So we can look at the output shares. This is a little bit what you did also, Wendell. And you actually did it with more in more detail than I'm able to do. I don't have access to such data. But we can see that in terms of output shares, so that is how much manufacturing you have in GDP, Jamaica has been pretty low in terms of, surprisingly low in terms of agriculture, I must say, but also in terms of manufacturing. And services have always been very, very high in Jamaica, or I shouldn't say always, but we're looking at the time period starting in 1970. I guess this is dominated now by tourism in particular. Whereas in Mauritius, you have the more traditional development story where agriculture share is falling quite rapidly while manufacturing is increasing. And you see the increase and you see the peak, and then you see how it slowly sort of fades away and gives room for services, but only after they have reaped the rewards from manufacturing. I'm not so sure that ever happened in Jamaica, that maybe Jamaica basically leapfrogged the manufacturing. That also happened in India. The Indians are very sorry for that, and they're actually trying to re-industrialize because of that, because they missed out on many of the goodies that happened during structural change. We can see also from employment shares And here we can actually see the resources going into the different sectors. And here we can see that there are quite a few people working in agriculture still in Jamaica. Not many people in manufacturing, a lot of people in service industry, of course. And again, you have the traditional development story happening in Mauritius, with the lines pointing in the direction that you would like to see. So you see a fast decrease in labor going into agriculture. Here I'm comparing the 4 sectors in terms of relative productivity. So this is the productivity of Jamaica compared to Mauritius. The horizontal line here is parity. So here is where the 2 countries are equally productive in the sectors. And you can see in all these 4 sectors that we're looking at, Mauritius is performing better than Jamaica. But it wasn't always like this. So something changed here. And of course, it's a phenomenal success story that we have in Jamaica. And I'm sure we will soon hear about why this is the case. But I wonder if that's the only story, that Mauritius grew faster than Jamaica. Did also something happen in Jamaica? Maybe. Maybe there are 2 forces going on at the same time here. But the fact of the matter is that now Mauritius is outperforming Jamaica in all 4 dimensions. So let me just conclude here that we have established that productivity and welfare are intimately correlated. That technological progress is central, and we have used 2 arguments for our 2 theories, if you like, growth empirics and structure change empirics. And I have argued that industrial development plays a big role in this, and thus industrial policy plays a big role. And we have seen that, and Wendell will probably sign off on that, that Jamaica and Mauritius have very different growth and industrialization experiences, and that this might have something to do with the productivity and the welfare development of the 2 countries. So, yeah, the question is, how did industrial policy then play a role for explaining this? So thank you very much for listening.
Hey, Isaac, so you needed that.
Thank
Tamara?
Yes.
I'm done.
Are you hearing me?
Now I can hear you, yes.
Thank you so much.
Shall I stop screen sharing?
Oh, yes, you may. Thank you so much, Anders, for that. Thank you.
I'll say thank you on your behalf. It was excellent and in line with what we've been saying, Tamar, especially the technology. So as you drink some nice freaking water. It was very helpful, Anders. We look forward to even having more access to that presentation. I think Mauritius is a great benchmark for us. It was in our group, and that would be very helpful for us.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for saving me just now. And thank you, Anders.
Thank you, Anders. Great presentation.
What's happening? But I don't know what's happening. But we also want to, at this time, welcome the minister who has joined us, Honorable Minister Carson, Minister of Labor and Social Security. Thank you so much for joining us. You came in and heard Anders' presentation from UNIDO. And Anders, if you were here in the room, you would hear the voices, you know, the cringes, you know, Jamaicans, as you know, we had carried it to Usain Bolt's track when it was just built when you came here. And we like to win. We are winners. So when we hear that things are not going south and in the opposite direction, we don't take kindly to that. And so what we are here to see is how we can improve from where we are to change that trajectory. And the good thing is that we have Mauritius next in line to hear what their thoughts are and what they did, so we can learn from them as persons who have done it, so we can change that inflection point that happened, a few decades back, to one where we can get to reverse the poverty and to have a greater standard of living here in Jamaica. But we wanted to hear from our panel as it relates to what was discussed. And to start us off, we wanted to hear more about, the role of human capital in all of this, and the development of human capital, and some of the things that are happening here in Jamaica, opportunities that exist. And we have none other than Dr. Amonde from the Heart Trust NTA, who is going to share with us some perspectives based on what was discussed here as well. So over to you.
Okay, thank you, Tamar. I want to congratulate the Jamaica Productivity Center on having this very relevant discussion at this time. I think it's important that as we grapple with the challenges, we also look at the many opportunities that lie during this context, during this period. It is said that the pandemic, will roll back years of growth, and there will be loss of income, there will be loss of jobs, and that it has come at a time when the world was quite healthy and more educated than ever. Even in Jamaica, we have seen the contraction in our economy, according to PIOJ. But within all of this, we are recognizing that people, are our greatest resources. That's what we learned in Social Studies 101, harnessing the talent and what our people can bring during this time. And so we see human capital development as a catalyst for growth. The World Bank says that during this time, we really need to focus on boosting learning outcomes, focus on improving enrollment. And so in addition to all else that we need to do in our firms, like getting our staff members involved, engaging them, strategically planning to allow for flexibility, I think we really need to focus on how we can harness the talent on building knowledge, skills, and attitudes so that can facilitate personal growth, social growth, economic well-being, and ultimately it's about productivity. So this is a mandate of the Heart Trust, Heart NSTA Trust. We now have a new name because of our merger. It's about developing competent persons for the workforce and for social and economic development. It is in our vision. Our vision, we speaks to a vibrant, dynamic, inspired, highly competent workforce. And so even as we keep this on the agenda and we remain productive, during this time we have had to transition to remote learning through different online solutions to ensure that we are keeping our learners engaged. We have had to build the capacity of our instructors to repurpose and put programs and deliver programs online. We have been working with our trainees to provide psychosocial support to ensure that during this time they too can develop resilience and grit and determination. And we have been looking at the infrastructure and the equipment to support the remote learning. As an organization, training and certification is at the heart of what we do. And so we offer a number of programs that individuals, both youth and adults, it doesn't matter what age you're at, where you can come in and pursue programs at different levels in areas such as robotics, mechatronics, optoelectronics, animation, auto mechanics, health and wellness. It was interesting to hear Andre, who gave the presentation at the beginning, say earlier, agro-processing. That is also, we have Ebony Park, where we'll not only produce the vegetables, but we are also heavily involved in agro-processing, which is seen as a key driver where manufacturing is concerned and where growth. So we offer those programs as well, hairstylists, electrical installation, cybersecurity, social media marketing, and this year we have an enrollment of over 97,000 persons to enroll in our various programs and to certify at least 57,549. We are seeing new opportunities in data literacy, data analytics, artificial intelligence, software, automation, film, coding, jobs with a high level of emotional intelligence, such as counseling, customer care, automation in agriculture, which is very much in sync with your vision for where we are to go now. And with all of this, we also focus on what we refer to as the soft skills and the employability skills. So growth and going out to be a competent worker is not just about your technical skills. It's also about those very important interpersonal skills, such as what's needed at this time. Resilience, determination, discipline, technological skills, creativity, innovation, critical thinking, research skill. Elisa, I heard you spoke about applied research earlier on. And collaboration, the ability to work as a team. So these are key skills that will really help you to become a competent worker and survive during this age. And all the programs that we offer are aligned to our Vision 2030 sector. We also provide grants to mobilize our small and medium enterprises. So we provide grants for these. We help with the development of business ideas, entrepreneurship training, and access support throughout the way as we hold your hands, hold the hands of our trainees who we support with startup businesses and the more established businesses. At the moment now we are working with JAMPRO, that was said, Lisa, to advance the global services sector to ensure that we are training persons also for those higher value areas, those highly skilled areas, not just the entry level, so that they can really go out there and make a difference in the workforce. So at the Vocational Training Development Institute now, we are training 500 trainers who will now go out and train 60,000 individuals to work in the global services sector. And this is all in collaboration with the JAMPRO and support from the International Development Bank. So it's also about workplace learning and certification. We go into workplaces, we assess their needs, we recognize the prior learning of those employees on the job, and we are able to give them what they need to fill the gaps and so certify them. So I just want to congratulate you. It's very necessary that we have this conversation, because it's not only, yes, it's about survival, but I also believe that we can harness opportunities during this time, and we can thrive as individuals, we can thrive as communities, and we can thrive as a nation.
Thank you, Dr. Amonde. Wow, what a lot of information just shared there by Dr. Amonde. So, you know, Anders spoke about us moving from low, medium to high tech. And there you have it. There are a lot of high-tech opportunities there at Heart Trust NTA that, you know, persons can and businesses can take advantage of. So, you know, it will be necessary at this time to even possibly pivot in where we are to another field perhaps, or other areas, and there are opportunities there where we can get those skill sets that are needed or sharpen any skill sets that we need to sharpen. And if there I know in the manufacturing sector, Andrew, sometimes there may be gaps in terms of, what is needed to raise the bar.
What we've found is the Jamaican university system and Heart Trust has done a very good job of providing skilled labor into the workforce.
Yes.
As you move forward in technology, you need to move forward in the skill sets that your employees have. You need to move from manual labor to engineers.
Yes, higher level.
And even though at times there are shortages of highly skilled people in Jamaica, I think the Jamaican education system and the Heart Trust has done a phenomenal job of bringing people to industry that have capabilities that are required in the industrial.
Wonderful. It's good to hear that. We just continue to get this kind of feedback from more employers like you, key partners in the process. And
we need more good people, though. I mean, for Jamaica to grow and for the manufacturing sector to grow and the service sector to grow, I think we need more good people. You always need more great people in a country.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is there anything based on what Anders has said in terms of manufacturing that's resonated with you in terms of, either manufacturing value added, need for more value added? I know that's something that you are very passionate about as well.
Yeah, I mean, Anders had a lot of very good information about the manufacturing, the need for policy, public-private sector partnership, and very clear government policies associated with manufacturing, how we're going to grow manufacturing. We need the people, we need skilled people to get us there. We need people who have dreams, that can dream big and really target on making these incremental changes to the private-public sector relationship that result in us being more competitive. Once we have a goal, as you said, and we start measuring, have a target, it's a lot easier to get there than us wandering that target.
That is true. Thank you so much. So we're seeing the creativity, ladies and gentlemen, the innovation that is necessary, that was just spoken about, that critical thinking factor. All of that will come together to increase the innovations and to get the increased value added that we want, right? So at this time, we are going to now get the minister's remarks. Minister Samula? Over to you.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, everybody. And so far, I found it very interesting. And first of all, I'd like to commend you for having put on this forum. I think it's a very valuable forum, and this is the kind of discussion that we should be having. But before I start, I must tell you, when I came in here, Andrew, I didn't remember, I didn't recall, I didn't realize that I was, you're David's son?
Yes, I'm David Walsh's son.
Well, you're getting old when your father worked 30 years ago with you. And I'm glad to see that you're following in the family footsteps and getting engaged.
Yes, Frank.
Great to see you.
Jamaica's a great nation, and I think everybody needs to step up and try and make it.
Great to see you. Now, folks, I've heard what Andres had to say, and also Dr. Amonde. And I just would like to address this. I must look this way, right? Yeah. I would like to address this from the point of view of where we have gone off the rail a bit, and some of the reasons for that. But first, I'd like to just point out how much respect we have in Jamaica for Mauritius and their efforts to achieve economic growth and development.
That's so true.
They have done a remarkable job. Our Prime Minister visited there, I think, and they came back very impressed. And we've been talking about their experience. But I also want to point out that prior to the COVID outbreak, Jamaica, as the Minister of Finance said so many times and so eloquently in Parliament, Jamaica was on the right track. We were heading in the right direction. We had built up resources. We thought that would have withstood any shocks, and we had no idea that the shock would be as great as this COVID has proven to be. Now that it has had a devastating impact on our economy, where we have seen a dramatic decline in economic growth, we have been able to a great extent, stabilize the slide. And we are now focusing on those areas that can restore our economy to a healthy path as we were on before. Now, based on all that has been said, the emphasis, of course, is on the productive sector. And Jamaica had a very vibrant productive sector. And it came about because of the introduction of organizations like the JIDC, where training played an essential part. And I'm glad to see the extent to which CART and other agencies of that kind now have taken over the role primarily that was undertaken in the earlier years by JIDC. Training is very critical, but the training has to be focused. And we have to identify, in my opinion, those areas of production where at least we have some experience. We have to also realize that we have gone through a fundamental shift in how we do our business in Jamaica. We have exchanged quick cash or productivity in industry to quick cash. By that, what do I mean? We are now, as an economy, focused primarily on trading. And, fortunately, the expansion of our services sector, through tourism, BPO sector, and so on. Whereas in the earlier years, we were really made a great attempt at increasing production through increasing productivity to produce goods for the export market and the domestic market that were indigenous to Jamaica. In other words, converting what we produce into finished products in the hope of exporting them and also supplying them locally. We saw that in the garment industry, we saw it in the furniture industry, we saw it in other industries. Those industries that provided labor that was trained and very, very adaptable to those industries has been shifted. And now what we find is, in my humble opinion, an overemphasis on trading, because it's quicker, at times less expensive, at times less risky. Take an example, Jamaica Broilers, which his father was one of the founding members of that organization, started as a fledgling industry, as a byproduct of agriculture. Unfortunately, our sugar industry has suffered tremendously. But the one reason why that has taken place is because of a lack of resources at the appropriate time. 80%, over 80% of the arable land in Jamaica that is irrigable has no irrigation. I want you to consider that. We have fertile land, but we cannot irrigate it. Not that we don't have the water, but the cost of carrying the water to the land and thereby enabling the farmers to produce most effectively and profitably, we don't have. Vast quantities of resources are going to be necessary if we are going to move agriculture in the direction that it needs to move. Covered agriculture, protected agriculture, because we are susceptible to climate change that creates havoc with our agricultural sector, and we just saw the results of that recently with the flooding. Precautionary measures and adaptive ways of coping with those shocks is something that we will have to address as a matter of urgency if we are going to have sustainable agriculture, not cyclical agriculture, sustainable, consistent agriculture. I have had, that's what comes with growing older and having many years experience. In one lifetime, the greatest exposure, by way of example, of what other countries have been able to achieve. And I visited Shenzhen. I visited Shenzhen, the economic zone in China, in 1993. In 1993, that present Shenzhen, which is now extraordinarily large city and manufacturing mecca, arguably one of the biggest and best in the world, was a fishing village. I witnessed fishermen living on ponds adjacent to what had just started the development of that economic zone. I had the pleasure of visiting a factory at that time, and I witnessed a culture at the workplace that I came back to Parliament here and I commended it to the Jamaican communities. We walked into a factory and it was full of workers, and none of them even looked up. They weren't distracted because they were focused on what they're doing. And in my limited way, I could see immediately. So I took the chance of projecting. And I suggested that we are looking at the factory place of the world, where they would so hone their human skills and so train their supervisory levels that they would be able to produce all the items that are now uncompetitive if produced elsewhere. But to produce the item by having the labor content of productivity and growth, labor as a factor of production, cannot get you into the position of wealth and independence. Labor, the ability to provide labor alone without any innovation is limiting the potential for real growth. So what we have sat over the past 30 years and observed is that China has shifted fundamentally from being the factory of the world, though they still perform that function, to being one of the greatest innovating countries of the world. Because they realized that providing labor alone was not going to give you the wealth factor that you need to feed and develop your population. And in their case, it's an urgent matter. So the shift from providing the service to creating the product and adding the service to produce it in quantities that would make them very competitive is a model that I have grown up with, and a model that I think has served them well, and others would do well to emulate. Produce items that come from indigenous raw materials, do it efficiently, do it productively through training and the application of appropriate technology so that you can be competitive in what you do. The suggestion that because we are a small country, we can take a lead from Mauritius. The idea that because we are a small country, we'll never be able to compete with the large countries. There are areas within all our countries where we can specialize in those activities that give us a competitive advantage. In one instance, and what has been of great assistance to the development of the economy of Jamaica, is in the tourism sector, where we hardly have anyone in the world that can compete with us in terms of what God gave us. What we have to do now, and what the minister has been trying desperately, and the cabinet and everybody, is focused on restoring the tourism sector by having the value added with a combination of support from the agricultural sector, the manufacturing sector, the service sector, to make tourism a holistic industry. Because we saw the dramatic fall in our growth as a result of a dramatic fall in tourism. And it has taught us a very valuable lesson. Whereas before we were willing to overlook the enormous contribution of that sector to our economy, we now are satisfied that that is one of the key sectors that can grow our economy. So we must now pool our resources, find those innovative techniques that can make tourism the best and most wealth-creating sector in the country. For my part, as Minister of Labour, I cannot say that I'm satisfied with what I have witnessed in the last 2 months. I've only been in that ministry for 2 months. But when we did an analysis of the figures, what we find is that there's an overwhelming inflow of applications for work permits to work in Jamaica, where 68 or so percent, or about 60% of all the work permits applied for are for the commercial sector. And to provide persons to work in Jamaica, enable people to work in Jamaica, doing jobs that the Jamaican people can do and can be trained to do. So as a strategy, from where I sit, that we are going to apply, and we are going to apply it vigorously, is that anyone wishing to come and participate in the development of their business through the relationship with Jamaica, they must be prepared to share with us in training our people when they are employed in their jobs, having reached a stage where they can replace those who have been given temporary permits. We cannot grow our economy and create a vibrant workforce if, as I've said repeatedly, it's like trying to fill a drum but have a hole at the bottom, leaking it out. It's no use trying to create employment while at the same time offering a level of influx into that marketplace that depletes our chances of being able to provide the labor necessary to serve industry and commerce. It is not a means of preventing anyone, and we welcome business in Jamaica, but we want business that are coming in to share through the training exercises that they will put in and prepare someone in their organization in Jamaica to take the place of those that they have temporarily asked to come and help them to develop their business. This market can serve the Jamaican people and others who wish to share in it. And everything that can be done will be done through the Productivity Center to see to it that the type of employee that people coming to invest in Jamaica are looking for will be prepared and ready to take their place in businesses that are willing to come from abroad and invest in Jamaica. This is a wonderful exercise. I wish you all the very best. I know it will serve us well. It will sensitize the productive sector as to the urgency of getting involved in training. And finally, let me say this. Whatever we do, whatever we try to achieve, will only be achieved if we establish mechanisms by which we monitor the activities and the successes that attends our efforts. We must be able to measure what we do. We must be able to know what are the inputs we are making and what are the results that are coming from that. And we have to use data to guide us as to those areas where we can enjoy the best advantage that will assist us to really involve the whole workforce at a different level, moving the workforce up the scale, up the value scale. Because in the final analysis, the factors of production are labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. Those are the three primary factors of production. Working together, we can make it work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Wow,
Well said.
there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I think we can wrap up right now. You said it all. and you know, really reinforcing a lot of the points that were mentioned by the data, and you know that measurement is key, right? Decision based on facts, you know, not just on gut feeling, but on real numbers. And you know, you mentioned the cultural aspects, Minister, the psychosocial aspects that we cannot ignore as a people, as a country, that we need to change our mindsets as it relates to productivity, to growth, and to remove that cap and to just go where we need to go. Thank you so much, Minister.
Now I'm going to beg you. I'm going to have to
Sure.
run off because I have another engagement.
We're happy to have you.
It's been a pleasure. Okay, I hope I'm not being rude by running off, but you want me to stay a little longer?
If you have to go, you can go, Minister.
I
That
can
would
go.
be fine with us.
And
All right. Thank you so much.
all right. His father and I spent many sleepless nights arguing over money. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Presentations, and right now we'll hear from our friends in Mauritius, and with us we have Mrs. Abdul Rahman Ahmed, who is a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Industrial Development, SMEs and Cooperatives, in collaboration with Mr. Rishi Dumin. Please forgive me if I've mispronounced it, Rishi, who is an analyst, and Mr. Dev Appulswamy, who is the Director of Capacity Development, and both are from the National Productivity and Competitiveness Council. So we welcome you three with us today, and we look forward to hearing from you as you share the Mauritian experience in industrial policy, productivity, and competitiveness. Over to you, Mrs. Abdul Ahmed.
Thank
Go ahead. We can hear
Yes,
her.
we can hear you.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes,
Proceed.
please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Tamar, and greetings to all participants from Jamaica, and as well to Anders. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to be afforded the opportunity to share the experience on industrial policy, productivity, and competitiveness. So for me, the presentation will entail a short introduction, a background of Mauritius, important phases of Mauritian industrial development, and then I'll talk about the National Productivity and Competitiveness Council, the MPCC. All right, first. You see that Jamaica and Mauritius, we have many similarities. Like Mauritius, Jamaica is an island country. It has both of us form part of the Commonwealth. The population of Jamaica is about 2.9 million, as opposed to us, which is 1.3 million. And then we are both an upper middle income country, dependent heavily on tourism. And then Jamaica has the added advantage of being near the American continent, which is indeed a big market, a large market. All right, from Mauritius, it's a volcanic island of an area of 1,865 square kilometers with 330 kilometers of coastline. We were a former British colony, which obtains its independence in 1968. we transformed from a low-income monocrop economy to a recently high-income diversified economy with growing manufacturing, agro-industry, financial, ICT, BPO, hospitality, and tourism sectors. Mauritius has a GDP per capita of 12,740 US dollars. The Mauritian manufacturing sector is one of the main pillars of the Mauritian economy and accounted for 1.6% of GDP. Manufacturing continues to remain a priority sector for development by the government. Regarding the important phases of Mauritian industrial development, the industrial policy trajectory was dictated by the various exigencies of the situation at that time. Since independence, successive governments have contributed to transforming the economic structure of Mauritius from a basically agro-monocrop economy to a diversified economy with manufacturing playing a strategic role. The evolution, as I mentioned, of the industrial policy since the independence involved various stages. We had the first.
Can we
Mrs.
interrupt
Amel?
you for a minute just to ask you to take off the note screen and just do presentation mode so it takes up the whole screen? I think you have to do it on your side, so we'll see your screen better. Thank you.
All right.
And we're hearing you clearly. Thank you so much.
She didn't realize it's a little blurry.
When it goes into
Wonderful.
That's
Thank you
perfect.
so much.
Yes. Okay, the post-independence era, which spans from 1968 to 1979, the foundation of the industrial development was laid with an import substitution strategy to address the critical issues of high rate of unemployment, balance of payment deficits, and shortage of foreign exchange. Given at that time the exiguity of the local market, the import substitution strategy met with limited success. In 1970, a new orientation was given to the industrialization process with the coming into force of the Export Processing Zone Act, which supported an export-oriented strategy along the lines of the Hong Kong and Singapore models. Then we have got during the 1980s, the country started to reap the efforts put up through the export strategy, and many foreign investors came to look upon Mauritius as a profitable base of operation. Mauritius was able to take advantage of its preferential trade agreement with the EU as well as the US. Then followed the consolidation and the diversification strategy. Government adopted the two-pronged policy of consolidation of the textile sector and diversification of the industrial base. More integration in the textile sector was encouraged with the promotion of weaving, knitting, and dyeing activities. And then the industrial policy was geared towards the development of small-scale industries Act of 1988. Then we went through the phase of revisiting the Mauritian model. As from 1990, the EPZ sector was confronted with new challenges, such as the shortage of skilled labor and competition from low-cost producers in the East Asia. This took a toll on the growth rate of the EPZ. New policies had to be formulated to deal with these challenges. We went to a restructuring of the manufacturing sector from 2006 to 2009. It was marked by a series of bold policies taken to reduce tariff to encourage manufacturing activities. Then there was also major changes in labor legislation to favor creation of enterprises and employment. The new paradigm from 2009 to 2014, the main policy challenges were to accentuate consolidation, modernization, expansion, and diversification of the industry base. To achieve this, we went through accelerated pace of competitive and sustainable industrial growth. From 2015 to 2020, we came up with a new vision for the manufacturing sector. In 2015, government launched the Vision 2030, which defined new strategies for the manufacturing sector. It focuses on the second economic miracle and aims at propelling Mauritius into the league of high-income economies. We emphasizes on the promotion of high-end, precision-driven, and technology-enabled manufacturing to increase the share of the manufacturing sector to 25%. Some 3 years back, the manufacturing sector was at a crossroad with low industrial growth rates, declining employment, and decreasing exports. There was a dire need to reorient the sector and reshape its contours so as to bounce back and regain the desired growth momentum. My ministry therefore sought the financial and technical assistance of UNCTAD to formulate a new industrial policy and strategic plan 2020-2025. This new document was launched on the 4th of December. The overall objective is to give a boost to the manufacturing sector to contribute to economic growth of the country. Indeed, the IPSP has crafted a new vision for a globally competitive and sustainable industrial sector that contributes to higher economic growth for Mauritius, with continuous innovation, technology upgrading, productivity gains, and high-skill employment. The report, I must say, has recommendations which lays the foundation requirements of the manufacturing base. So in parallel to this industrial development, the need was felt for the National Productivity and Competitiveness Council was therefore set up and became operational in May 2000. The objective was to stimulate and generate productivity and quality consciousness and drive the productivity and quality movement in all sectors of the economy, with a view to raising national output and achieving sustained growth and international competitiveness. The Council, as the decision-making body of the NPCC, comprised a cross-section of respective interests, namely government, employers, trade unions, industry associations, professionals, and academia. According to the NPCC Act, the organization has some 16 functions, which have been regrouped under 6 broad components: the promotion sensitization, research and analysis, documentation, operations, advisory, and networking. So under the promotion and sensitization, we have come up with, we provide the forum for constant dialogue and consensus building on all matters pertaining to productivity, quality, and competitiveness. We also promote and develop greater quality, productivity and quality awareness among the public. We inculcate new values and attitudes on productivity, quality, and competitiveness. Then there come the research and analysis component, where constraints are identified to improve productivity, quality, and competitiveness, and naturally to provide the remedial measures. And there is the data, promoting, undertaking research, particularly with training in all aspects of quality, productivity, and competitiveness. The way to go about this, we have productivity committees where people, appropriate persons are co-opted, and for example, the productivity committees are called upon to carry out tasks such as studies, prepare opinion statements, and so on. Then there is the documentation, which is a very important part of it, where we have, it serves as a focal point on all matters and act as a resource center on productivity, quality, and competitiveness. They engage also the MPCC in advisory networking, which is really, we need to establish linkages and to build collaborative partnership with all those concerns. Yes. The national MPCC has a national mandate. Stakeholders and partners include, as is mentioned, departments, private sector, non-profit organizations, developmental partners, organizations, and national as well as international, dealing with the productivity and competitiveness issues. We are at MPCC, we say that productivity is equal to smart work. It's not hard work. It's a better living for the nation, which is equal to productivity plus social justice. On this note, I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ahmed.
Thank you very
and
much.
team. That was beautifully summarized. We thank you for sharing, and congratulations on launching your national industrial policy on Friday. Congratulations.
Yes.
That is amazing work, and one of the things that we have seen from your experience that you have shared is how you have been able to pivot often and to make some very bold moves as it relates to growing that particular sector. And at this time, I just want to open up to the panel, to give some remarks based on what has been discussed for the day so far, any of the presentations, what Mrs. Ahmed has just mentioned. Let me start with you, Andrew.
Very, very good presentation, Mrs. Ahmed. Very thought-provoking. As representing the JMEA in the manufacturing sector in Jamaica, we actually see the manufacturing sector as a pillar of growth in Jamaica. And we look forward to the work being done with the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Industry and Commerce in partnering with them to really facilitate strong growth in the manufacturing sector. Have an economic policy that favors manufacturing, focus on those things that limit our ability to grow, focus on those things that allow SMEs the opportunity to become large conglomerates and really grow in the Jamaican economy. JMEA believes that manufacturing is one of the primary pillars of development of Jamaica. It's a primary foothold for labor development. It's a primary foothold for growing the population, growing Jamaica out of poverty. So I thank you for the presentation and thank you for your insight. And the JMEA is excited about the future. There are lots of challenges.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of challenges that I'm sure that you saw in Mauritius and you have in Mauritius. And we have very similar challenges in Jamaica. We have challenges of cheap imports from the East. We have challenges with labor. We have challenges with funding, finance, technology. And working together, I think we can overcome these challenges and find ways to tick the box as we eliminate or improve on
Right.
specific items.
Yes. We have to get granular and specific. And, look at the pain points, release those, and so that we can grow. So thank you for that. And Lisa.
Thank you, Tamar, and Mrs. Ahmed and team, thank you so much. What is very encouraging is that we're on the right track. We did a lot of this work for the Productivity Council, the National Competitiveness, JAMPRO. I think the minister ended on the right note to say the measurement.
Yeah.
We definitely have to have measurement. I believe that a lot of what we've heard from Heart has the right programs. So when we think about measurement, we have to think about scale. So if I look on even some of the things that we have in our productivity measuring indices, which are similar to what even Mauritius said, because we have to catch up.
Yeah.
But not only do we have to catch up, we have to leapfrog. We are behind. We have to just catch up Mauritius and keep on par. And when we think about devices that are needed in terms of telecoms for adults, e-participation, all government services need to be online. We have to have, apart from things we mentioned, which are obviously non-negotiables, crime and R&D, electricity supply, we have to have highly reliable telecom services and affordable telecom services. These are the technology-based things that we can't afford to be afraid of anymore. They have to be part of it. So even when we think of agriculture, it's an export-driven strategy, and it's also a specialty agriculture using GPS. We have to include technology in it. Manufacturing, I think, we certainly had a good say in terms of what we have to do in manufacturing. But it comes back to, you can't have jobs unless you have investments. We need foreign direct investments and local direct investors. Foreign direct investment went down. We need to get that back to be able to create the jobs in these areas. And tourism, which is our biggest FDI, has now been impacted. We need to just get it back because Jamaica is a different place. We have great infrastructure. What the minister said was right as well. We are a different place. We have had major improvements. So it's now to grow on that and make sure that we can. But smart work, I think the messages from Mauritius and from UNIDO were critical. Smart work, measure what you have. Don't be afraid. We have to have bold targets and we have to go for them. So I really appreciate it and I want to thank you all as well.
Thank you to Lisa. And Dr. Monday, you mentioned, you heard Mrs. Ahmed just now, values, skills, and attitudes are echoing the same sentiments that you shared with us. Any other thoughts?
Precisely. I thank you, Mrs. Ahmed, and your team. I think what that presentation has done, it has made us realize the many possibilities, the many frontiers that we need to conquer. And a small country with a population of 1.3, if they can make those leaps and harness their persons to get things done and to move it forward, we can do it. We can do it. So it's 1.3 million. We are 2.9, about. Yes, so we can do it. So we really need, I heard what struck me, Mrs. Ahmed talks about policies and the strategic plan, taking time to think through a roadmap for how we can get there, and then coalescing all the partners, the various partners, all the themes behind that, all the various players, the various stakeholders coming on board. And then, as you spoke, Andrew, we need to see what that vision is for JMA at the Heart NSTA Trust so that we can align our training to that vision. The minister spoke about relevant jobs. Our training has to be relevant, and we realize our training has to be focused, and it has to be a way to get the agenda moving, to get behind the agenda. So I see possibilities for us to collaborate, to really come together, to do the applied research, to really come up with the innovative ways, the thinking outside of the box that can really take us to that level. So I think this conversation is going on. It has really started getting everybody aware about productivity and what we can do. And we really now need to have action. you know, because I think we talk a lot, you know. But
Execution.
I really think we need,
Make
where
those
we
steps.
often lack is the action and being willing to work through the barriers and the obstacles to get it done. So we will have the necessary conversations to ensure that our training is aligned, it's focused, and it can really get our people up to that level to perform at national and international standards.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monday. Love the actions that you are putting in place. We like to see that, and we will definitely support any initiative in that regard where that is concerned, because that can only mean great things for us and our economy. And at this time, I wanted to ask any of our presenters if they wanted to, for a minute, to share their thoughts. Anders, I know you had a lot of questions about, you know, what was happening here in Jamaica. When you saw the figures, you said, Tamar, you were like, these numbers, when you ran them. Any further thoughts here in the discussion, Anders, that you have for us?
Great presentation from Mauritius. Very, very interesting. I think there were several takeaways. I agree with the previous speaker that if Mauritius can do it with similar conditions, why not Jamaica? So of course, Jamaica can do it. One of the takeaways for me was the emphasis on strategies and plans that they have followed, I think, quite strictly. But these plans have, of course, changed over time, and they went from import substitution to export-led strategy. Obviously, following the discussion on industrial policy in the donor community, etc. But also, I mean, showing flexibility and the need to adjust to conditions. Ms. Ahmed mentioned increasing competition from Asia, which actually forced them to reduce tariffs. For me, that's agile industrial policy. We know that import substitution is not the most popular industrial policy out there among donors. And we also know that fundamentals actually matter. At the same time, everyone is protecting their industries. I mean, I think there is something to the infant industry argument, although it's fraught with lots of political economy considerations. There are bigger countries in the West that actually protect their own industries as well, like the steel industry and so on. So it was very interesting also how they tagged on to the East Asian miracle, Hong Kong and Singapore. And we of course remember that Korea, for example, in the 50s was poorer than Ghana. They only had rice production, they had no diversity, anything like that. And we know where they are now. So it is possible to actually start from almost nothing to create a lot of wealth. So this can also happen in Jamaica. And of course, you don't start from that poor situation. So one thing, well, I actually have a question back to Mauritius on one thing, because I was talking a lot about modernization, technology-driven manufacturing is the goal. And it would be very interesting to hear maybe 2-3 concrete industrial policies that they have put in place to make this happen, because I think that would be very useful for Jamaica to learn about. Of course, we take note of the similarities between JPC and MPCC. That's very encouraging. What I really like, and I think needs to be mentioned, is that Mauritius is making sure that that various stakeholders of the ecosystem is actually heard, and that there is continuous discussion among different actors. And I think that's actually key to increase the chance of success of strategies and policies. And I think, I mean, she was also emphasizing the importance of strengthening the links between actors, which is done through various activities such as documentation, such as meetings and producing papers and things like that. So I think that was very encouraging and something that Jamaica should definitely listen to. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anders. And, you know, excellent points that you raised. And I see that you're very, very attentive. You know, I really think you have some Jamaican coffee there with you. But I do agree with you in terms of the similarities between the NPC and the JPC. And in fact, just yesterday, I had a discussion with a member of the ILO because both productivity centers participated in a study about a year ago, and the paper was released yesterday as it relates to National Productivity Organization repositioning for relevance and impact. And that was released yesterday by the ILO. So I think Mauritius should have a copy of it. I do have a copy and I can share it. And one of the things that they said was that they were happy that we were able to have these exchanges, as it will be most useful and efficient in terms of growing and finding new ways of doing things. So they were very happy to hear the conversation started between the two countries. And we look forward to having more sessions with other productivity organizations across the region where we can learn from one another and see how we can help to impact growth in our various countries. And you are so right in terms of the strategies and the plans and the actions that Mauritius have put in place. And if Mrs. Ahmed could answer that question that Anders asked as it relates to some of the industrial policy measures that we could possibly learn from, that would be great. So, Mrs. Ahmed?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's very great on your part to really Jamaica, to acknowledge where you are and where you want to reach. And you're willing, you're open to learn from the experiences from others. This is really great and a very right attitude. And I'll pass on to Dr. Duman, who will give you more details.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the elements mentioned in the by different speakers, they show that Jamaica can make it because you have the potential and then you have the setup to leapfrog, as you say. To the questions from Mr. Anders, to show some areas where we have brought certain types of innovation. I'll just mention that formerly we were agricultural country based on only sugarcane. Then we shifted after the independence in 1970s on textile. We had 30 years of textile production, but even then we tried to improve on it. We tried to put on activities like spinning and dyeing. I think we have some of the biggest weaving and plants in the sub-Saharan Africa in Mauritius. 3 big companies, and now we are producing garments for all the branded products in Europe and some of them in USA also. The branded products. We had the hard task of competing with products from low-cost countries from Asia. I think you also will have the problem while producing. While manufacturing, you will have to have an eye on what is being produced from other countries. This is where competitiveness and then survival also remains. And we had to be competitive, and we always have a watch on our competitiveness. That's why we try to go for more value-added products in textile, more technology, big plants, weaving and finishing plants for textile. We have gone a bit also more in terms of design in textile. We propose the clients in Europe and US our design services. We have for some 10, 15 years now, we have diversified the manufacturing. In fact, we have one company which is producing medical devices. We say the catheters. It's for intervention, surgical intervention. I think it will become the 4th world largest manufacturing catheter in Mauritius.
Wow.
The medical one manufacturer, and they're exporting to the US. India.
That's our dream.
Medical. Then we have other small activities in light engineering, which is quite associated with jewelry, but then with watch movements, with watch straps and all these. There are many other small activities in which we have diversified, and that's where we say I think you also have put, Jamaica has also laid much emphasis on skills. We also put much emphasis on our versatile labor force, because they can change sectors, they can adapt to other sectors. Now we are trying to inculcate a lot of this artificial intelligence and then Industry 4.0 aspect in our production, just to increase the output, the overall output of the sector. I think we have answered the question, or?
Yes, yes, you have. I mean, if you were here, you would see the nods and the shaking of the heads and the oohs and the ahs. I mean, I think you have really hit the nail on the head, choosing particular areas of focus and upskilling, adding value, diversifying, and having the versatility of the labor force that can move from areas of need that, that arises. I think, yes, you have given us a lot of food for thought. So thank you so much. And wow, I think this session could have been an entire week and we still wouldn't have gotten everything. But so much information jam-packed. But before we end, I just wanted to get some of the questions answered from our participants that are listening, that are watching. And I'm going to ask our next presenter, Wendell, to take this first one. Wendell, are you hearing me? What can be done, or what plan could be put in place to help our economic growth? That was one question.
Oh, so based on the presentation, I've identified how we could use agro-processing to actually increase productivity, and that may translate into higher productivity growth and economic growth.
All right, thank you, Wendell. Anybody else on the panel wants to address that question?
I would probably want to just build on even what Wendell said in
Yes.
that the internet allows small countries to be big. And I think growing brands and making sure they're registered will help us. So if we go into specialty agriculture, we obviously, part of our policy is to be export driven.
Yes.
It's really to ensure that we can use some of the value we have in our uniqueness and,
Yes.
our brand Jamaica
Yes.
being known. If we can be drinking Fiji water in Jamaica, why can't Fiji be drinking water? Because everybody kind of wants and is attracted to some of the brand as well. So finding that mix and building it on our capabilities and being able to have, I think I wanted to just say, that collaborative strategy.
Yes.
Each KPI we have come up in
Yes.
productivity has 2 or 3 stakeholders that have to co-create the strategy
Exactly.
to leapfrog and get there.
Yes.
So I really think, although it may seem daunting, there's a fantastic opportunity to kind of, to use some of the greatness that we have to get there. And branding is a big part of it. We should have global brands. We have some of the best in the world, and we can create new ones.
Very well.
Thank you, Lisa. And it goes straight to the conversation we were having this morning, Andrew, as it relates to our brand Jamaica. And, you want to speak a little bit about what
I mean, what Lisa was saying, what you're saying is so true. With technology, a small business can sell a pound of coffee anywhere in the world. With policy and good route to market logistics, we can ship it anywhere in the world efficiently and cost effectively. And we need to harness the power of technology. When you look at the opportunities that Amazon has brought to small businesses globally, small businesses with 2 employees have a presence in a global sales. I mean, they're selling things to the world. And I think that we really need to focus on finding ways of the SMEs, the really innovative Jamaicans making products, that we find ways to allow them to sell those products to the world.
Thank you. Dr. Amanda, you had any other thoughts?
I see it from a human capital training perspective. Train, upgrade, train in response to new and emerging areas. It's about constantly getting new skills, embracing lifelong learning as a country. You see, being versatile, being flexible. I'm very glad to hear about transversal skills, having a core set of skills that can go across areas. So embracing technology, being digitally literate. So even that is a thrust that we need to focus on. Learning another language, being open to other cultures, just becoming a global citizen and willing to embrace out there. So it's about training and embracing new skills and confidence in ourselves as a people, you know.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And we will take one more question for the entire, for the presenters and panelists from the participants. What policies and programs should be implemented in the short to medium term that may improve total factor productivity? And we heard about that earlier, such that Jamaica may be placed on a path for sustainable growth.
That's a huge
That's a huge one. It's a huge one.
Can I say to you that we are in the environment now for some really bold policy direction. So, you know, when you think that our youth unemployment has gone from 20% to 30% since COVID, that group needs to be in HEART programs today.
Yes.
So therefore, maybe some big policy matters for the finishing school options. I mean, the GSS, which is a BPO renamed, requires us to create labor for that fastest growing job employment opportunity.
Right.
And I think marrying those and pulling that group in will help. Also, having even the youth get into, you know, more support for education because we're shifting to work from home. So I think it's just about some bold policies.
Yes, yes, and definitely, absolutely. And based on the discussions we have been having, you know, the focus on measurement and monitoring so that we can get really granular and specific and adopting practices that will help us to minimize our costs, reduce our wastage, and really be able to focus on growth.
And
you know,
I just want to add, Tamar,
sure.
I think what's also important is a career development policy. Where are we going as individuals? How are we, especially in our schools, to help our young people to become more focused in terms of where they want to go and the tools for getting them there. And it's not only going into a job, but it's also how we create jobs. So I think we really need to embrace this career where we get them to begin to think about jobs and focus on jobs, and a lifelong learning policy where we are all required across organizations, public and private sector, to embrace lifelong learning. That
Thank
means
you.
from the cradle to the grave. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts from our presenters as we wrap up? Anders, yes? Let's hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, first, I'm not so sure I'm a great supporter of that question because I don't think TFP is a short to medium. You see, it's more as a long-term goal.
Yeah.
And this is something that you gradually work up to. I mean, by enhancing your capacities and capabilities. And I think the emphasis on human capital is extremely laudable. And I fully agree with that focus. You know? What also comes to mind is innovation. And for example, to strengthen the systems of innovation, and there are several of them, of course. I mean, there are sectoral, there's a national one, international one, and so on. So to strengthen the actors within the system, the linkages between them, and also, I mean, the laws that sort of govern the system. We're talking about patent laws and IPRs and things like that, and make sure that the system innovation is actually fit for purpose. So, I mean, if your innovation is mostly about technology transfer, then you should focus on strong technology transfer offices, and maybe also very strong meso-level centers. With many other things they don't have. They don't have R&D. They need skills. They need help with different learnings, right? Um, I also think, and here maybe I'm speaking to JMA, the larger thing, I think to strengthen a company's abilities to innovate is very important. And from a policy point of view, is of course to provide this seed funding. I mean, not to crowd out funding that would anyway have been there. My own country, Sweden, I think the latest figure I saw was that 84% of the funding that goes to companies is basically for the expansionary innovation and not for the early stages. And that's not where policy needs to go. That should be taken care of by the market, basically. So Sweden has some improvement to do on that front. As I said, provision of training for skills enhancement, provision of market intelligence is very, very important. Removal of innovation barriers, and enhanced protection of inventions. A lot of innovation policy we hear about is actually about inventions, not necessarily innovation. Innovation is the very last step from invention to commercialization, right? I think it's also important. I think JPC is sort of smack on target here on creating an understanding of the role and importance of innovation and productivity for development. So I think it's very important to talk to JMA as an association, but also to its members to understand, to hear from them, their perspective, what the problems are, and how policy can help. There's actually a recent, let's say, innovation among innovation policies that you might be interested in. It is called functional procurement. So in many OECD countries, public procurement accounts for some 15-20% of GDP. So if you can use procurement to provoke innovation, I think that would be great. So we're looking at solution-oriented procurement, for example, for environmental problems, or I think the COVID vaccine is a super example of the type of innovation you can have when this is demanded, and how quickly they can do it. I mean, normally it takes 3 to 5 years to come up with a vaccine. They've done this in 1 year. I hope it's for a good reason. So, yeah. So, and plus all the things we heard from Mauritius and following these data. So, I mean, so there's so many things, but think about it as a long-term investment and continuous investment into your production factors and into technology and innovation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Anders. I mean, wow, what a wealth of information shared this morning. We can't thank you enough. You know, Anders, you're in Vienna, Austria, to our friends, the Permanent Secretary from Mauritius and her colleagues from the NPC. We can't thank you enough, and I know it's night there and we are cutting into your sleep time. But we thank you so much, Wendell, for putting together our Jamaican statistics, and for our panelists that are here with us streaming live. Thank you for taking the time and for being here, for preparing and to share and to continue the conversation on how we can grow the economy. And to you, our participants, those who are either listening live or are listening to it on replay, we want to thank you too for your time and your energy, for being here with us and helping us to move this message further, because as you see, it requires a movement, and you notice how many times it was mentioned about collaboration and coming together. And definitely, if we are on the same path, on the same page as it relates to productivity growth in Jamaica, I think we can make those dents and to really innovate, to change, to recreate, in terms of where we want to go, and change those, the skill sets, the mindsets, the attitudes, everything along with that. So here we end our session for this forum, and it was indeed my pleasure to host you today, and the pleasure of the Jamaica Productivity Center. And on behalf of the Ministry of Labor, the Minister of Labor, the staff and members of the Jamaica Productivity Center, and all here, we want to thank you. Have a very productive rest of the day and the rest of the year, and please be safe as we chart a new path as we go forward as it relates to growth and productivity. Until next time, thank you.